Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to talk to you about these Yieldmax funds going weekly. I had another video planned, but I think it's important we talk about this. And I know a lot of other people have made videos about this, but if you stay to the end of this very quick video, I promise you I'll give you two things that nobody else is talking about, which is what I think the real reason Yieldmax did this, okay? So, first, we have to get into exactly what has happened. So let's jump into the tablet here and take a look. Okay, so as you can see, Yieldmax ETFs announced transition to weekly distribution across product suite. So on October 8th, basically they announced that they're going to take all their single stock ETFs and move them into a weekly pay structure. So they're going to be declared every Tuesday and Wednesday. And the ones that we know for sure that are not are the Target 12s. And we haven't heard about the Target 25s. When they come out, I'm sure they'll let us know. But Group 1 basically will declare every Tuesday. So we'll find out what we're getting paid Tuesday. And that's starting October 14th. The X date, the date you need to own it by, is the 15th. And then payment date is every Thursday. So YMAG, YMAX, Feet and 5E, ulty, SLTY, basically the rest of the weeklies are all going to be announced on Tuesday, X dividends Wednesday, you get paid Thursday. Group 2 is where they're taking their single stock ETFs and their short single stock ETFs and putting them out to be paid on Friday, basically. So your distributions will be declared on Wednesday, so you'll find out what you're getting paid Wednesday. Then your X date will be Thursday, you got to own it by that, and then your payment date would be Friday. Now, the one thing I'm going to say is I think that efficiency-wise, this makes sense. And this is the layout, basically, of how they're going to do it. So you're going to get paid from Group 1 on Thursday, Group 2 ETFs on Friday. Pretty simple. And as I said, the Target 12s are not involved in this. They're going to remain monthly. I would guess the Target 25s probably will too. But from a income standpoint, like for us, this makes no difference. It really doesn't. Even with reinvesting, you're not going to make that much by reinvesting and changing, or even us getting the money. We plan our budget, so it's not a big deal. But I promised you guys that I would give you two reasons no one else is talking about why they did this. So let's get into that. All right, so I wanted the camera closer here because I want you guys to feel like I'm just like somebody that's talking back and forth with you. So I'd love it if you went down in the comments and gave me your opinion on what I'm about to say, because it's not going to be popular, but it's the truth. So when Missy and I sat down and talked this through, I was kind of under the same impression that everybody else is. They were just trying to basically match up Roundhill, that the people wanted weekly pay, so that's why they did it. And then I thought about it some, and I realized that's not it. Yieldmax is a business. They don't do things because they're your buddy or because you want it. The demand is not because people really want paid weekly. There is demand for that. Don't get me wrong. Everybody likes that. But if your product's better, they don't care whether it's weekly or monthly. They're getting paid, honestly, if your product's better. What has happened is there's been a lot of outflows out of Yieldmax. Not enough to hurt their bottom line. I mean, they've got tons of money in a lot of these funds. So they're fine. Trust me, they're making millions every year off of fees. That's not a problem at all. But outflows are a problem, and you have to pivot and change. Since the Roundhill funds have come out, they have been having some serious outflows as people move their money over from Yieldmax over to Roundhill. This is happening, guys, but that is only part of it. All right. Now, this part is going to be the part that most people are not going to like. And I know it feels like I'm using one example and picking on these people that own this fund, but I think the mentality of it fits. So, The easiest thing you can do when you have a fund that has NAV erosion is to pay more often. Why that is let me ask most of you. Now, I watch my investments way more because I'm living off my portfolio. But if you have a family and you're living your life and you're doing your thing, you may be watching once a month, what is Misty doing? Or, what is NVIDIA doing? What is Platy doing? Okay? Once a month, you look at that and really look at it. So, for example, let's say Misty went down 4% in a month. All right? And let's say that they paid their dollar and now it went down another percent or two, let's say. You're going to notice that. You're going to be like, I'm down 6% in a month, guys. That's a lot. But what happens when you get paid weekly? You're down 1.5% over the week. Is that going to stress you out? Probably not. You're probably not even going to pay attention to it. And there has been multiple funds. tsly has been one that has been showing, for a long time it was showing a lot of NAV erosion. And they're not going to change their strategy. It's built for it. It's called Yieldmax. They're about getting you money, and that's true. But I feel like this is just a repeat of when they did this to ulty. Because all it does is hide your NAV erosion. That's all it does. There is no benefit. It costs them more money to do this weekly. It costs them more money. Hear what I'm saying? They're a business. It costs them more money to do it weekly. They're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart to try to give us all what we want. They want to stop the outflows. And then on top of that, they will get people to complain less about the NAV erosion because over the week, it doesn't look like it went down that much. It is actually almost not as visible. That's why a lot of times you zoom out, all right? If you think something, you're like, oh, it's going down like 0.5% a week, but I'm getting this much income out of it. Zoom out and see how much it's went down over 52 weeks and then come back to your decision. All right, it's just a different way of thinking, about it. And I hate the fact that I didn't come to this with another good example other than ulty because it's a real thing. I think that ymax is another good example, only it hasn't had that much NAV erosion, so it's not a real great example, but it's still the same thing. As soon as they went to weekly, that thing started selling like crazy. Yes, because people wanted more weekly income. Don't get me wrong. There is people that think about stuff like that. But the reality is it doesn't look like that bad of a thing. Or they'll say we made changes and we went weekly. And then everybody buys in. And the NAV erosion continues. So I just think it's a different way to look at the situation. Businesses don't go out and make decisions like this that are going to cost them and be like a lot more paperwork. I can promise you there's accountants sitting somewhere going, this sucks. I have like double the work to do now. And there's also how they manage their money and all that has all got to have little minor changes. Only thing I would watch, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I would keep an eye out, is I'd be interested to see if the expense ratios change. If there's an extra fee because they're changing it. I'm not really sure. I haven't looked into it. Right now, nothing's changed. But just because you get paid more often is not always a good thing. Sometimes they're trying to hide something. And you can say that, I'm being paranoid or whatever. But that was one of the bases. They sold us the same thing on the ulty thing was they said, oh, people want weekly. We're going to give you weekly income. I think it was more they were trying to hide that NAV erosion that at that time was pretty bad. They were trying to keep people in that fund reinvesting. And now a lot of these bigger funds are having a lot of erosion right now. And the market's doing a little pullback right now. And all of a sudden they come out and start going, oh, we're going to do weekly. The pressure from the roundhill funds crossed with the NAV erosion from a person that sells. If I was running that business, I would do the same thing. I think it makes perfect sense because people are not going to notice how much these funds are eroding. You get to match up with the competition, and it might slow the outflows. I mean, every person that takes one stock and sells and gets out, they start losing money. And trust me, they're here to make money. But it's just my take. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I mean, honestly, I want to hear your opinions on this. And I think we'll be able to watch this and see if I'm right. See if mentally how it affects everybody to be like, oh, we're only down 0.5 or 1% this week. But in truth, you're down 4% for the month. So keep an eye on that, and we'll keep an eye on these funds. I've got money in the game too here, guys. So this is just how I'm looking at it. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next one.